week. 49ers coming off a win, and what might be the pivotal two-game stretch of the season is upon us. The Cardinals and then the Rams visit Levi's Stadium, and I think that after this two-game stretch, we're going to have a good idea of the 49ers' actual trajectory. The start of the NFL season is just funhouse insanity with a ton of small sample sizes. The sample size slowly gets bigger and bigger, and then you usually hit an inflection point. 49ers probably would have hit the inflection point a little early if they had lost last week at Chicago. That wouldn't have been good. But they didn't lose. They won. They stayed afloat. And I think now they hit the forced inflection point. Cardinals visit Levi Stadium. They may or may not have Kyler Murray. Then the Rams come on Monday Night Football. And then it's a game against Jacksonville on the road that's eminently winnable. So if you look at this from the 49ers' hopeful point of view, they find a way to take out the Cardinals and the Rams. Obviously, going to be really hard to win both of them. But if they can somehow do that, that game against Jacksonville is very winnable. And then what? They're 6-4, and they're in really good position. So that's why I call this an inflection point, because you could either lose both of these to Arizona and LA, and then it's really looking bad. Then it's really looking like you're sliding and not able to compete at all, obviously, in the NFC West. And your only, prayer is some kind of miracle wild card shot. You can split these games and just stay treading water, or you can grab life by the horns if you're the 49ers, win both of them, and head into Jacksonville with a chance to go 6-4 and a legitimate chance to crawl back into the division race. It's, from multiple perspectives, these next two games are going to be fascinating. We've already seen the 49ers play the Cardinals and play them close with Trey Lance at quarterback. They didn't get a good offensive performance in that game, and they still almost beat Arizona on the road. So we could use this as a measuring stick for the 49ers on Sunday, right? And then that Rams game brings so many interesting narratives, the latest being fueled by the trade for Von Miller. So I decided to write about all of these dynamics today on The Athletic. Here's the headline: Assessing the 49ers post-trade deadline chances of making a run at the Cardinals and Rams. And no, I am not discounting the Seahawks. Russell Wilson just posted a video of him taking some throwing attempts after removing the pin from his thumb yesterday. So Russell Wilson's going to be back sooner rather than later. That makes Seattle a danger to anybody that they play, and obviously a danger in the NFC West, because with Russell Wilson as your quarterback, you could always go on a run. But the Seahawks aren't on the schedule until December. The 49ers don't have to play them for another month. Right now, it's all about the Cardinals, and then it's all about the Rams. So I wanted to write something in the context of the Cardinals and the Rams. And we already have a question right here. David, you should go over the rest of the NFC to show why three teams in the West are fully capable of making the playoffs. I started to do that with this piece today. So I'm going to link it in the comment section later. I'll put it right now into the live comment section. If you are following on Twitter right now, watching there, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube, because then you can actually talk to me and I could put your questions up. And if you're following on Twitter right here, here's the link. It's on my Twitter as well, but it's easier to interact with me. So subscribe on YouTube if you are following on Twitter. And I attacked the question of the strength of the NFC West in today's piece. So this is the 49ers efficiency for the past 3 years and efficiency trends. Here's the Cardinals efficiency and their efficiency trends over the past 3 years. And here's the Rams efficiency combined with their trends from the past 3 years. You'll have to read the article to get the fuller story. As you can tell, it's obviously some more complex stuff. But in general, the Cardinals are a top 5 team on both sides of the ball. If you look at all the advanced metrics, they have the Cardinals about number 5 offense, number 2 defense. The Rams are not a top 5 team on both sides of the ball. They're the number 1 offense with Matthew Stafford as quarterback, but they've slipped because of the salary cap, and they lost 4 defensive starters down to number 9 on the defensive side of the ball. That helps us explain and helps everybody explain the Von Miller trade. The Rams were the number 1 defense last year. Their offense was terrible. I mean, it was sliding under Jared Goff, so that explains the trade for Stafford. They've gotten back up to number 1 offensively with Stafford, but the defense has slipped because of the salary cap. So they went out and they traded draft picks for Von Miller so that Denver would also pay Von Miller's salary so it could fit under the salary cap. The clear goal for the Rams is to stop the defensive regression, bring that defense back up to par, and be where the Cardinals are right now. Have a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. So that's what the 49ers are dealing with. If it works for the Rams, they're going to have 2 teams that they have to leapfrog in the NFC West, or at least beat, a handful of times, so that they can get into the wild card spot in the NFC. And both of those teams, the Cardinals and the Rams, will have top 5 rankings both offensively and defensively. I talk every single year about how balance wins championships, and that's what this piece is about. The Cardinals and the Rams are both trying to establish the balance that wins championships. The 49ers last had that type of balance in 2019 when they had the number 2 defense and the number 7 offense. The 49ers were getting it done on both sides of the ball. So obviously this is going to be 49ers centric. Here's a look at their efficiency. Zoom in a little bit on it so you can see where the 49ers are and where they must go. In 2019, number 7 offense plus nearly 4 points per game expected points came from their offense. Number 2 defense, nearly 8 expected points per game came from their defense. In 2020, Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt. Essentially, the entire roster gets hurt. 49ers slide to number 20 on offense, so they're in the red. They're below average. But they stay afloat on defense. They're number 6 on defense, but it's down to about plus 4.5 points from their game per game from their defense. Moving into 2021, the hope was that the 49ers defense would surge back toward 2019 levels, and the offense obviously would too. So far, only the offense has done that, thanks in large part to the performance against the Bears. But the 49ers defense is now officially a below average unit. So let that sink in a little bit. 49ers offense surging. That performance against the Bears, I think, showed exactly what they're going to have to do the rest of the way. Because the defense, to me, is inherently limited for the 49ers this year. Some of it is their fault. Some of it is the fault of injuries. Some of it is both. For example, the 49ers hung their hats on Jason Verrett at the cornerback position and Javon Kinlaw at defensive tackle this year. Both of those players had concerning, to say the least, injury histories entering this season. Well, they're both now done for the year. So you blame injuries for that, but you also blame the 49ers for that because, it was a big, big emphasis to sign and add durable players this past offseason. Well, if for some reason it wasn't that big of an emphasis to add durable players before this offseason, and I think the 49ers are paying the price for some of that because these were some pre-existing conditions for Kinlaw and for Jason Verrett. Injuries were part of their resumes, and the 49ers can't be surprised that they struck again. Those 2 injuries have led to many domino effects that the 49ers don't like. For example, with Jason Verrett, it just weakened the entire cornerback position to such an extent that the 49ers were playing guys who they're obviously not comfortable playing. Even with Josh Norman, he's going to be 34 a little bit later this year. 34 years old at cornerback. At some point when you're playing him, when you're playing a 5th-round pick in Deommodore Lenoir, when Emmanuel Mosley is your top cornerback instead of your second cornerback, at some point, guys are going to be out of position. And when guys are out of position, pass interference penalties are going to happen. And when pass interference penalties happen at a record rate, well, then you're going to be losing value defensively. The 49ers have lost nearly a touchdown per game due to defensive penalties in terms of expected points. That is by far the most in the league, more than twice as much as most teams in the league. So the Jason Verrett loss was disastrous for the 49ers. And the Javon Kinlaw loss has been also, it's not a loss of Javon Kinlaw. It's a loss of what the 49ers hoped they could get from Javon Kinlaw. And the defensive line is this symbiotic organism, right? For the edge rushers and the pass rushers in general to have their shots at opposing quarterbacks, you have to put them in position and stop the run. To stop the run, you've got to have dominant bodies up front, especially in the wide 9 where everybody is spread out. Javon Kinlaw was drafted, especially after DeForest Buckner left, to be able to gobble some of those blocks in the middle and also give the 49ers a little pass rushing pop on top of that. But the fact that he's been, he was in the lineup last year. I think he played 14 games for the 49ers last year, but he has been bothered by the knee. And then obviously this season, he's no longer in the lineup. Season ending injury, surgery, season ending knee surgery on top of the injury that he was trying to manage. The 49ers don't have him. And now, really, their only decent run stuffing defensive tackle is their one technique in DJ Jones. That three technique spot is, God, it's a big wash right now because Zach Kerr can do nice stuff. Maurice Hurst is hurt right now, by the way. Getting Hurst back will be big for the 49ers. But Zach Kerr can do nice things pass rushing, but he just gets washed against the run. Right? I don't think Kevin Gibbons has been good against the run this year for the 49ers either. He's another kind of quick twitch guy who can, execute some pass rush moves, but these guys aren't the stalwarts against the run that the 49ers need. Therefore, the Kinlaw injury has had bad downstream effects of making the 49ers vulnerable to the inside run. And because of that, they're not getting the same pass rushing opportunities that they had before. And guess what? That also hurts the secondary, which obviously isn't great, especially post-Everett, because if a rush over coverage team is not getting into consistent pass rush situations, you do the math. It's not going to be good for the whole defense. So for that reason, I think it's very clear that the 49ers defensive ceiling is limited this year. You saw it against the Chicago Bears. That was not a good defensive performance. Justin Fields had sucked against everybody until the 49ers, and he looked good. If that's not an indictment of the 49ers defense and their limited potential this year, I don't know what is. Now, the 49ers did make a trade, and I like the trade. I think it's a good move. I think it's more than a microtransaction, but it's definitely not a splash move. And we'll talk about that in a second. A bunch of you watched my video about it yesterday, and it may be something that gives the 49ers a little bit of that boost of versatility on the defensive line that lets other dominoes fall into place. But the defense will still be inherently limited even after it. The trade came for a pass rusher. And we could take a look at his numbers down here, right here on the piece, all the way at the bottom. Charles Omenihu from the Texans. Now, the one thing that probably stands out to you is no sacks, but his pressure rate has been very good, 13.8%, higher than even Bosa's, higher than even Eric Armstead's. Number 9 in the NFL for Omenihu on the pressure rate. And pressures generally are more predictive of future sack production than actual sacks are. So if you put Omenihu on a better 49ers defensive line than the Houston defensive line, and obviously it still is talented, especially as far as pass rushing goes, with Nick Bosa there, with Dee Ford for the 49ers presumably coming back, with Samson Ebukam playing better football. You put Omenihu there, I think he can make a difference. I think he can make an impact, and the 49ers obviously believe the same thing. What I like most about him is that he's 6'5", 280 pounds. He's not small. He's not a Dee Ford or Ebukam type speed edge rusher. This is a guy that could be able to rotate around, give the 49ers some of those much-needed snaps on the inside, and most importantly, play a nice strong side defensive end position, give the 49ers depth there so that Eric Armstead can move inside and help alleviate the problem caused by the loss of Javon Kinlaw, because that three technique position is so important. So the way I look at this move is it's a sum of the parts kind of move. Maybe it gets the 49ers to that critical mass on the defensive line to allow that unit to kick it into an extra gear. I'm not talking 2019 gear. I'm talking something like between 2019 and 2020, right? Something a little bit better than what the injury-riddled 49ers have had to deal with this season. And if Omenihu can give the 49ers that kind of boost, it can help the secondary. This is a rush over coverage team, and the defense can maybe improve from slightly below average to slightly above average. If that's what the Omenihu effect does, it will have been a successful trade for the 49ers. They can get slightly above average on defense. I showed you guys the table right here. They're in the red right here defensively, right? Bottom right of that graph. They got to get into the blue. Balance gives you a shot in the NFL. Right now, the 49ers aren't balanced enough. We saw it against Chicago. The offense carried the 49ers against the Bears. Fine. That formula is good, but it's going to get the 49ers knocked out of the wild card round of the playoffs if they make it, right? They need balance. So the defense has to be better, and I think the pass rush is their ticket. That's what they've committed to. That's what the trade for Charles Omenihu is about. This week, the 49ers are probably going to be without both safeties in Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tartt, although Ward has an outside chance to play. That underscores this further. I mean, the secondary is going to be a revolving door backups for the 49ers this year. It's clear that they're trusting the pass rush to help alleviate those concerns on the back end. So, bigger picture, 49ers are trying to get that small improvement to above average defensively, and then they're going to give the torch, or they already have given the torch, to their offense. The 49ers offense is going to have to be the locomotive that tugs this train. In 2019, the defense was the locomotive, but it wasn't like the offense was just standing around not doing anything. The offense was still number 7 in the league in terms of all the efficiency metrics. They were doing their job. This season, it's going to be the inverse. The offense is going to have to tug this train, and the defense is going to have to make sure that it's not standing around idly and not doing anything. So we already talked about the defense. The offense has to find a way to replicate as much of that Chicago performance as possible consistently throughout the course of the season. The performance against Chicago was awesome. Plus 19 EPA for the 49ers offense in that game, right? The elite offenses in the league are around plus 10 or 11 per game. 49ers were plus 19 against the Bears. So that was an elite performance over a one-game stretch. Obviously, they're not going to replicate plus 19 every game, but they're going to have to do a better job being consistent. One stat for you, the 49ers ranked number 19 in variance. That means that between game to game and even within games, if you want to look at, fluctuation, the 49ers are wildly vacillating offensively between really good and really bad. That's made the evaluation of Jimmy Garoppolo and this team a little bit more difficult than people on Twitter would like to admit that it is. For example, against the Packers, the 49ers look terrible for about half the game. Then they look excellent, minus the Jimmy Garoppolo throw backwards in Kenny Clark's face. But they look excellent for about half the game, right? Against the Seahawks, they look good on the first couple drives. Then stuff really slows down. Even against the Bears, the 49ers sputtered early on, but then they turned around and had a lights-out second half. That's why they rank so low in terms of offensive variance. It's just going up and down too wildly. It's about finding that good level of play and sustaining it. The 49ers need their variance to go down, and they need their overall efficiency to continue climbing. So, I mean, you can argue that, this is just who the 49ers are. They're not very good. Jimmy Garoppolo's too erratic. They don't have enough receiving personnel. Kyle Shanahan isn't good enough to consistently do what they did in Chicago on a week-by-week basis. If you say that, you might be correct. But let me have a drink of my coffee, and I'll give you the big caveat here, and it's the one that should give the 49ers some hope. We might have seen a formula in Chicago that lends itself to the notion and the theory that the 49ers can be consistent offensively moving forward. And that formula is simple. When the 49ers have an outside zone run game, and when it's clicking behind good run blocking and a speedy back, a back who's tailor-made for that outside zone run game, they have a defensive spine and everything else falls into place. The 49ers this season have generally not had that, and it hasn't been because of their offensive line, which has actually been good, and their auxiliary blockers, which have actually been good. I mean, Charlie Werner is blocking his ass off. He's taken a stride here in the second year, and he's road grading out there in space. The 49ers haven't had the consistent running game, though, because their running backs haven't been good enough. They lost Raheem Mostert, the speedy back around whom a lot of the outside zone plans were based in week 1. Then Elijah Mitchell came along, and he looked okay in week 1, obviously, but he's starting to miss some holes later on as the season progressed. I don't blame Elijah Mitchell for being a little bit shaky early in the season. First of all, he was dealing with a painful shoulder injury. And second of all, the guy's a rookie. Well, lo and behold, the further we get from Mitchell's shoulder injury and the further we get from the inexperience of his early rookie season, so the more time that Mitchell has had to acclimate to the NFL level, the better he's running. Up to the point that over the past 2 weeks, Elijah Mitchell has rated as the best running back in football in terms of rushing yards over expectation. This is based on tracking data, and I think it's a great stat to illustrate, oh, can this Shanahan running back, right, with this speed, hit holes on the outside that other running backs simply can't hit? And over the past 2 weeks against the Colts and then against the Bears, Elijah Mitchell has actually rated higher than every other NFL running back. You saw it against the Bears. He was hitting creases that other guys don't hit on the outside zone. It turned into explosive runs. The 49ers solved their explosive running issue. And most importantly, they solved their spacing issue. Defensive spacing. If the defense is too bunched up around the box, you got to stretch them out. That outside zone with a fast enough back can do it. And the 49ers executed that against the Bears. So, with that in place, I don't think it was a surprise that play action worked, that the standard drop back game worked, that there was room on the field for Jimmy Garoppolo to operate. And most importantly, the steam was taken completely out of the Chicago Bears pass rush. Now, you can be a glass half empty kind of person and say, oh, the Bears were missing Khalil Mack. Yes, they were. But I think that you're missing the forest because you're staring at a tree if you say that. Even if the Bears do have Khalil Mack and that defense is severely compromised if the 49ers are executing an efficient outside zone run game because the defense is stretched out, because the defense is worried about having to go sideline to sideline. The pass rush loses its legs in a situation like that. We've seen the 49ers take good defenses to the woodshed before in previous years when they're running the football that effectively. So even if the Bears had Mack, and this theory is going to be put to the test moving forward, obviously, because the 49ers get to play the Cardinals. They don't have J.J. Watt anymore, but that's still a top 5 defense, right? They get to play the Rams. They're going to have Von Miller. So this theory is going to be put to the test, but we've seen the 49ers take good defenses out back and really do a number on them because of their ability to run when they've had Raheem Mostert. Well, now you enter Elijah Mitchell, and I think that same balance that the 49ers showed against the Bears that started from the run game can apply moving forward. I think that is their ticket to consistency moving forward. If they run the football, Jimmy's going to look good. Everything else is going to be able to fall into place. That's how it's been ever since Shanahan showed up, and that's how it still is right now. Now, the big differentiating factor between this 2021 49ers team and what they've had in the past is that these guys can actually pass protect at, good league rates. In 2019 and 2020, the 49ers weren't a good pass protecting team. So if they ran well, they were able to run play action and the offensive line was shielded in a way. And that's how the 49ers established a good passing game. But straight drop back situations were trouble for the 49ers, and that inherently limited the offense. Well, it didn't really matter in 2019, at least as far as getting to the Super Bowl went, because the defense was so good. But I've already illustrated that the 49ers defense has a ceiling this year. They're going to need more from their offense. They're going to need performances like Sundays. And performances like Sundays mean the offense can't be limited. Well, if the offense can't be limited, you're going to have to do something on top of the running game, on top of the play action game. You're going to need the straight drop back game. One reason that Jimmy, and I think maybe the primary reason that Jimmy Garoppolo succeeded so well in that straight drop back game is because the 49ers offense, aside from rating, according to PFF, number 4 in run blocking grade this season, also ranks number 4 in pass blocking. Trent Williams has been a man. I mean, he's been the highest graded player in the NFL. Alex Mack, did you see him hustle against the Bears? He's the first one down the field on after the Debo bomb to line up so the 49ers could get the spike down with 7 seconds left. Alex Mack ran 35 yards to lay a block on a DB on the Debo Samuel 83-yarder. I mean, Mack and Williams are playing studly football. Laken Tomlinson's playing well. I think Daniel Brunskill's playing better. And I don't think Mike McGlinchey's playing poorly anymore either. So I think you have 5 offensive linemen now for the 49ers who, A, are going to be tested over the next 2 weeks with the Cardinals and the Rams. But you have 5 guys that are both run blocking well and as a unit pass blocking well. And that is the one truth that can propel the 49ers to more explosive offensive play this year. Yes, you have Elijah Mitchell in the run game. That's necessary. that sets it up for the offense. But if the offense wants to blast this into another stratosphere, which is necessary for the 49ers to do since the defense is not going to be giving them top 5 efficiency this year, well, then you're going to have to get that from an offense that does more than just control the clock and run the football and throw play action. There's going to need to be a standard drop back game, and that can come only when the offensive line pass protects well. Jesse Sapolo tweeted it the other day. Jimmy Garoppolo looked great because the 49ers offensive line looked great. He's going to look as good as the 49ers offensive line lets him look this year. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. The theory is going to be put to the test against the Cardinals and the Rams. But when I say that balance wins championships, well, both LA and Arizona are striving to hit that kind of balance, and the 49ers are too. The 49ers are going to have to get there in a slightly different way. Their offense has a little bit more pressure on it than these other teams just because of that defensive regression, those defensive injuries. It's amazing how quickly things change. We go from talking about Jimmy Garoppolo's regression a week before to, with everything now clicking for the 49ers, a chance for him to take that next step moving forward. And hey, I know I haven't mentioned Trey Lance yet, but I firmly believe he's part of these plans too. If that 49ers offense wants to raise the ceiling, you've got one of the most athletic quarterbacks in football on the bench waiting for his chance. Well, insert him a little bit earlier. Find a way to mix and match Trey Lance into the plan. He can raise that offensive ceiling to a level that the 49ers need to compete with the Cardinals and Rams as well. This is great right here. One little comment before I sign off, head down to the stadium. Yeah, Ayuk did play well. We saw balance from the 49ers. It wasn't force-feeding Deebo Samuel all the time. Balance happens when the pass protection is there, when the run game is there. It's all connected. That balance wins championships, and it gets the ball to Brandon Ayuk. 49ers aren't going to be any good if they don't spread the football out. Guess what? One more piece of news. George Kittle comes back this week. So I think the 49ers are going to be in good shape to at least perpetuate some of the balance that look good for them moving forward. All right, guys, everybody take care. Talk to you soon.